Here's the skinny G-ton. After World War II, we needed heaps of new public housing. So the states and territories built it with the help of super long-term federal loans, up to 53 years in some cases. That arrangement continued right through to the 80s, and by 2018, the states and territories owed the Commonwealth around $2 billion in housing debt.
These loans are still fairly substantial, the interest costs are fairly large, and that's obviously dragging upon the state's ability to provide public services to its community.
Now, if you're thinking of what all that money could do to ease the housing crisis, you're not alone.
The cost of living crisis is creating a new class of working poor. Investment now has to flow into much needed infrastructure, including community infrastructure.
And there's precedent for dropping the debt. South Australia had theirs partially cleared in 2013, while Tassie had its debt waived in 2019 with a caveat.
There are some pretty clear conditions, absolutely. The conditions are that every cent needs to be spent on housing and homelessness.
Brendan Coates reckons the Commonwealth's powerless to actually enforce those conditions.
There's no way the Commonwealth can force the state government to actually spend the money on social housing. A much simpler way is just for the Commonwealth government to increase its commitment to social housing directly. That's a much more effective way of guaranteeing that the money is there for social housing, which we do desperately need.
But there might be another explanation for Tassie's success. A certain sassy senator with a crucial crossbench vote.
What you wouldn't have heard is the only reason they wiped that debt was because I made them. That's what you can do as an independent in the balance of power.
Now, who does that remind you of? Hey there, ACT crossbench Senator David Pocock.
I intend to use that power in the best interests of the people of the ACT to achieve practical outcomes, like pushing the Commonwealth to forgive our historic social housing debt.
So can Pocock take a leaf out of Lambie's playbook?
Well, he's here to run us through his game plan. David Pocock joins us. Senator, just how will you ensure, though, that the recovered money goes towards public and social housing where you say it's needed?
That'll be an important discussion with the ACT government to ensure that the money that would be spent on interest repayments does actually go back to building social and affordable housing. We've got a housing crisis here in the ACT. We're the most expensive city in the country to rent in, and it's not working for so many of our frontline workers who've got us through COVID.
But if I hear you correctly, does that mean you don't yet have a mechanism to ensure that that's where the money will be spent?
I don't have one in place yet because we haven't had that debt forgiven yet.
OK, so we'll watch that space. The last time this happened with Jackie Lambie, it was the way these things normally work, which is a quid pro quo. She voted on stage 3 tax cuts, I think it was, that in order to get this deal. So you give to get. What have you given here?
Well, this hasn't happened. I'm putting forward my case. We're in a housing crisis. The new government is committed to building social and affordable housing. They're setting up a $10 billion fund. It makes no sense for them to be giving the ACT money and us giving half of that back to them in interest repayments. If we're serious about it, get rid of the debt and we can actually put that money into building houses for people who desperately need them.
David, you're relatively new to the parliament. Just how's this whole politics thing going for you right now?
First 2 weeks was a wild ride. Really enjoyable. It's such a privilege being up here representing a community I love on all these issues that are so important to us. And so I'm learning a lot, but really enjoying it so far.
I do have something to pick up with you, though, because I have it on good authority that there was a State of Origin game between you politicians, a touch football game. You were playing for Queensland v New South Wales, and somehow Queensland did not win. So I just need to know how you let that happen, and did you let them win?
No, it was a good game. The PM picked up a try that was pretty questionable, but we'll let him have it.
Is this part of the quid pro quo, David?
If that gets me the ACT social housing debt, then he can score as many tries as he wants.
It's a very good deal. It's a very good deal.
Also, while we have you, the other major political legacy you've already established is the ditching of the tie in Parliament.
Yes.
Pete and I are very much on opposite sides of this equation, as you can see by looking at us. Pete dresses like a total scruff, and I remain professional. Why are you on Team Scruff?
I understand the need to dress in a way that is respectful for the event or wherever you're going. I feel like you can do that in the Senate, not wearing a tie.
Yeah, well, David, I don't buy into this team scruff thing, but I'm a team nerd over here. I mean, seriously, I mean, that's...
So, David, did you pause at all to reflect on the fact that this would put you on the same team as Pete Elliott?
I think he was influenced.
I think we'll be on the right side of history. So
yeah, that's it,
we're
David.
playing the long game.
That's it. Let's wrap this one up.
Yeah.
See if this has any impact on the housing crisis.
Probably
David Pocock, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.